Coaching college baseball in lovely Boone, North Carolina. It's Locked On Sunbelt.
You are Locked On Sunbelt, your daily podcast on the Sunbelt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Another bonus episode as we continue our 2025 baseball preview, Sunbelt baseball preview. We get the head coach of the App State Mountaineers, Kermit Smith, to join us. And how do you go about recruiting in lovely Boone, North Carolina? Do you recruit towards the ballpark? Do you get some guys who can hit and the ball can carry? You got to get some guys who can pitch and not allow a ball that carries that maybe shouldn't out of the ballpark and let them, shake it off, if you will. How do you get App State to move up in the Sun Belt? And how do you improve for 2025? What are their expectations in 2025? He is Kermit Smith. He is the head coach of the App State Mountaineers, and he is Locked On Sunbelt. Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. We continue with our 2025 Sunbelt baseball preview. We bring in the head coach of the App State Mountaineers, Kermit Smith. He is in currently, of course, lovely Boone, North Carolina. Coach, thanks very much for joining me. How excited are you for the 2025 season? Go ahead. How excited are you for the season?
Very. You get to this time of the year, this is what you do it for. I think the guys are ready to see another team in the other dugout. Kind of tired of playing each other and going to practice every day. Again, this is what you put in all the work for, to go play another team and compete and, play the level that we play at.
You still get nervous? You've been doing this for a minute. You still get nervous on opening day?
That day I will. Up to that, not really. Even just knowing that we play in 2 days, there's really not it's kind of just business as usual at this point. But the day of, I hope that I always have a little bit of something going for every game. But yeah, you've always got the unknown of what's about to happen. As the game gets going, it's pretty easy from there. But I don't know that I'd call it nerves. It's just I'm passionate about what I do. So when you get to that, closer to that first pitch, it's exciting, is what it is.
All right, so we've, as someone who's watched the Sun Belt and certainly, unfortunately, have never been to lovely Boone, North Carolina, obviously very scenic ballpark with the mountains and the pines right beyond the fences. How do you go about building your baseball team? How does the stadium play? As somebody who's covered the Cajuns, it's a big ballpark and, triples go to die, home runs go to die in center field. It won't carry quite as much, so the pitching usually is pretty good. And, if you got to get it out, if you get it out in left and center field in a Cajun, at the Teague, you've hit it well. How do you go about building your team? How does the park play, in the mountains? I presume the ball carries, but how does the park play?
I think, if you hit a ball that you think is going to be a home run, it's usually a home run. Our turf allows us to, play a good style of, defense. I think through the last few years, we've shown ourselves as one of the better defensive teams in our league. I don't think that the ballpark would ever really dictate how I would build a roster. I think I'd build a roster based on, what wins in college baseball. We want to have a really well-rounded athlete that plays for us on the positional side, a guy that can hit, that has good plate discipline, that can play defense and run bases and is athletic. And, from the pitching side, we want to have, a fearless competitor that will get in the strike zone and, want to get better, build his repertoire so that, he can bring, attack with more weapons, if you will. But, we're very fortunate to have a beautiful facility and very fortunate to play in this league. And, throughout the years, it's a very humbling league. You can think that you're on a roll and walk right into, fill in the blank. Any team in our league at the right time can be as good as anybody in the country. And, I think through the last few years, if you just followed the RPI, I think you're talking about a top 5 league across the country. And Regionally, we're very fortunate to be able to play a lot of, high RPI teams as well, just within our region, between Eastern Tennessee and, Central North Carolina, and even down into South Carolina. It's a great area. So the blend of the Sun Belt Conference and the regional Division I baseball, we're very fortunate to be in this area. And I think that plays into, again, that roster construction more so than, the type of ballpark that we would play in.
I guess the question is, can you get some cheapy home runs in there? Obviously, down the lines, that can happen in all ballparks, because while that's great for the hitters, sometimes the pitchers can get frustrated. They make a good pitch, and all of a sudden, I don't know if it's a jet stream or the ball just carries because of the high altitude.
I think it's a pretty true ballpark, quite honestly.
Okay.
Again,
right.
I think, just if you get it, just like any place, if the wind's blowing a little bit out, then
Sure.
it's gonna help you. And if it's blowing in, then it's gonna either hurt you or help you, depending on if you're the pitcher or the hitter. But no, I felt like it's pretty true here. I think that you can, we're fortunate to have some analytics and stuff like that here that we can go back and look at how hard the ball was hit, at what angle, what ballparks would that have gotten out of, some park factor stuff. And I think it plays as true as a lot of places, that, especially within our league.
Talking to Kermit Smith, head coach of the App State Mountaineers, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. In the business, we call that a segue. All right, how do you go about using analytics?
Probably use it in about everything that we do. Whether that's pitching or hitting. I would say from the hitting end, I would say a majority of it is used towards pitch selection, and I think what you can kind of divulge out of that is if a guy's swinging at the right pitch, what is he producing? And I think that's where the swing build comes into it a little bit. And in other words, if my player's swinging at strikes and the ball's going in play and he's not getting hits or not producing, whether it's high enough exit velocity or a good launch angle or what have you, I think that would be our job to go back and, help correct his swing. From the pitching end, I think you have so many intangibles there with building your repertoire. Analytics for us isn't all based on just how hard you throw. It's going to be, what gives us the best opportunity to have the most pitches that we can command. And if we can walk onto a mound and command, a 4-pitch arsenal, I think that gives our pitchers a better opportunity to get outs and to be more forward approaching, right? To be more attack mindset. I think on the last piece of it is, we're fortunate to have a pitching lab here that for all intents and purposes, I think helps us with arm care, helps us with body movements, and allows us to not only build a good repertoire, but to do it the right way and to help guys stay healthy, hopefully. So I'd say in some form or fashion, it touches everything we do in development, but we also, we've been doing this a long time too. There's a lot of things that we used to see with our eyes when we didn't have those machines. So it's, we want to trust those as well.
Do you see sometimes these guys are so focused in and right, these guys are on deck trying to time the pitcher that sometimes they're not actually pay attention to what's going on because they're thinking about the pitch that they're going to face. And that gets me, as someone who's just watching, they're not paying attention. Whereas the pitcher just threw 7 pitches out of the strike zone and he's walked the last 2 batters. And these guys are up there swinging at the first pitch and pop out. And there's nothing more frustrating than that. I don't even care if it is the first pitch is right down the middle and it's strike 1. You just can't do that as far as I'm concerned. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, part of the reason that I coach from the dugout is so that in a scenario like that I could maybe grab the guy before he goes up. I think you got to know where you are in the order. I think you got to know who's coming up. I think you got to know, maybe were those 7 straight pitches intentional, intentionally unintentional,
Sure.
Are they trying to get to a certain part or, do they feel like they have a matchup, with the on deck guy or the hold guy that, and maybe they thought the guy previously was just going to chase. And again, I think a lot of times in our league, especially early in the weekend, that you're not going to have a whole lot of those scenarios because of the quality of arm that's on the mound. But yeah, I think strategically speaking, I would hope that in that scenario, I would hope that we'd have some feel towards that. But in the case that we didn't, that's part of the reason that I coach from the dugout instead of coaching a base, is so that I can make sure that our guys are in a good position to be successful.
That happens at all levels. It happens in college baseball,
absolutely.
high school, minor leagues, and Major League Baseball. There's nothing more frustrating than someone, because they're so focused in on what they're trying to do, they're not paying attention to the big picture. Although I do like, oddly enough, after the meeting on the mound, because it really is going to be a first pitch fastball. Like 95%, it's going to be a get me over fastball after the pitching coach meeting on the mound.
Yeah, usually. That's right.
Just because they want to settle them down. Let's take a timeout. We'll come back. We will continue our conversation with Kermit Smith, the head coach of the App State Mountaineers. He came from the lower levels of college baseball, now in perhaps the best group of 5 conference out there. What is it like to coach in the Sun Belt? We'll do that right after I tell you about Factor. Looking to optimize your nutrition this year? Factor makes eating well easy with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved meals that are fresh, never frozen, and ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes. With 40 options across 8 dietary preferences every week, you can customize your meals to fit your lifestyle, whether it's calorie smart, protein plus, or keto. Plus, Factor even offers wholesome smoothies, breakfast, and grab-to-go snacks to keep you fueled all day long. I love how Factor takes the stress out of meal planning. I recently tried their Protein Plus meals. They were packed with flavor and kept me full throughout the day. The convenience is unbeatable. No prep, no mess, just great food in minutes. Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50off. Use code LockedOnCollege50off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code LockedOnCollege50off at factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. Let's continue our conversation with the head coach of the App State Mountaineers, Kermit Smith. He came from the lower levels of college baseball, now coaching in the Sun Belt. What was that transition like? We are talking to Kermit Smith, the head coach of the App State Mountaineers. So we've had Skylar Meade on, the head coach of Troy, and he came from South Carolina to the Sun Belt. You went the other way. You've moved up. You were an American Legion coach for a minute, and then went from the Division II ranks. What's it like coming into the Sun Belt from the lower divisions of baseball?
Yeah, I think the top to bottom that I referenced earlier is just the league is going to be so deep. I was fortunate to coach in one of the best leagues in Division II before I came here, and I thought that there were some similarities in those respective leagues. But I think that when you start breaking down what I referenced earlier, the regionalization of the scheduling and the Sun Belt Conference, and we've had a pretty seismic shift over the last 4 years with the COVID and the extra years and the NIL and the the conference realignments, and it was a very good league when I got in the league. It's an even better league now than it was back in 2017. So I think there's a lot of things there that I think regardless of where you came from, it's just a good baseball conference, top to bottom. And when you have aspirations of playing in the postseason and winning championships, you wouldn't want it any other way. And kind of back to your original question is, what is the roster construction for my ballpark? Our roster construction should be towards how do we win the Sun Belt? How do we compete with the best teams in our league? Because if we're competing with the best teams in our league and become one of those, then we'll be one of the best teams in the country. I think we had 4 teams go to regional last year. If I'm not mistaken, all 4 teams went to a regional final last year. If not, at least 3 of the 4 did. So, you could ask yourself in that respect is you got 4 teams that made it. If all 4 teams made it to the regional final and their respective regionals, should we have had more than 4 teams that made it? You're talking about the 4th, 5th best RPI league in the country. It's not a Pac-12 anymore. So, are you talking about this being a 5 or a 6 bid league? You maybe should. So I think regardless of coaching American Legion, coaching at Bowman Abbey, coaching at Lander, it's just a good baseball conference. And that's what you want. It's one of the premier leagues in our country. I think there's been the last 2 years, there's been 3 conference tournaments that all participating teams in the conference tournament are a top 100 RPI team. That's the ACC, the SEC, and the Sun Belt. So, you start putting yourself in that category. It's just really premier elite baseball.
All right, so let's go to that again. Segue. You're going to be doing my end of the shtick here in a minute. He's Kermit Smith. He's the head coach of the App State Mountaineers. Let's go to that. How do you move up in the Sun Belt? Talking to the coaches, they who've been here for a minute. It's the same teams year after year. It's the Southern Misses. It's the Cajuns. It's the Troys. It's the Coastal Carolinas. And App State has kind of been right in the middle of the pack. App State has had winning records in the Sun Belt, winning records overall, but kind of right in the middle of the pack in the conference. How do you crack to get into that, top 4, top 5, or, top 6? How do you get into that top half of the conference?
Hey, you win more games.
So I set myself up for that one.
Yeah. No, I think, for me, I track a lot. I think 3 of the last 4 years, we've been in the top 6 in our conference. Obviously 4 years ago, that was a 12-team league. Now it's a 14-team league. So you're talking about top 6, and last 2 years in a 14-team league that's top 5 in the country in RPI. So to not reference that we are moving up, I think would be a misconception as well. I think
that's true.
3 of the last 5 years, we've finished with a top 100 RPI. So the trend is going in the right direction. How do you make that next big step? I referenced to our team in our opening meeting this year that I thought we were about 3 of the correct wins away last year from potentially, being in a conversation for a bubble team. We finished 72 in the country in RPI. We lost, some close games to some high RPI teams throughout the year. And you flip 3 of those, like realistic games, not games that you got beat bad by or what have you, but 3 just realistic games. Right. And, you're talking about maybe jumping 12, 15 spots in RPI. So, if you're that close, I kind of jokingly answered your question there when you asked it, but it really is that difficult and that simple. Is you just have to win more games. You just those couple of games with those teams that have been there traditionally. We haven't played Southern Miss in the regular season, but we have played them in the tournament both times in the semifinals in the last 2 years. Last couple of years in Montgomery, we're one of 3 and 4 respective teams remaining. So we've had success in the tournament. We've had success in the regular season. The trend is going in the right direction. We just need to kind of continue that. It's, some teams will just make a big jump and some teams will have that continuous trend towards the right direction. And the beauty of our league, again, and, the hard part of our league is kind of back to referencing how many teams get a postseason bid. If we win the Sun Belt, that's wonderful. If we're playing in a regional, that's what matters. That gives us an opportunity to, be the last team standing. So that's we're fortunate to be in a league like that. And fortunate and unfortunate, right? It's a highly competitive league, and all the things that a player would want. Professional baseball, playing against really good players, having an opportunity for the postseason, playing in good stadiums. The league promotes and gives access to all of those things for the student athlete.
From a coaching and a player standpoint, for it not to have to come down to the final weekend of the season like it does in basketball, just has to make your life immensely easier. Although, I know that it necessarily isn't if you're not making the tournament, but, again, all my references are the Cajuns. I understand that. But you sprain an ankle on the last regular season game, and all of a sudden, your season is ruined, although you've just had your best regular season ever. And then you don't get to the tournament. So, that you get an opportunity to get 3 or 4 at-large berth teams. You have a shot knowing that. Let's take one more time out. We'll wrap up our conversation with the head coach of the App State Mountaineers, Kermit Smith. He talks about his scheduling philosophy and what players he's looking at in 2025 to help lead the Mountaineers. We'll do that right after I tell you about FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on the fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in on the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three, I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use. When you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. Let's wrap up our conversation with the head coach of the App State Mountaineers, Kermit Smith, talking about his philosophy when it comes to scheduling and what players he's looking to lead the Mountaineers in 2025. As we're talking to Kermit Smith, the head coach of the App State Mountaineers, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. What is your philosophy when it comes to scheduling? So again, a Cajuns reference, last year, he did not have a tough schedule, so they had to go out and win 40 to 45 games, and when you know it, he did. This year, they have a tough schedule, so maybe they don't have to win quite as many games because they are playing some, allegedly, at least going into it, some teams that are normally high RPI teams. Certainly, they got to win their share of the Sun Belt, but he may not have to win, 40-plus games to get that at-large berth because of the competition that he's playing early on. What's your philosophy going into it? And I noticed you got the College of Charleston, who is actually picked to win their conference this year. So little sneaky scheduling there, although I guess if you know college baseball, it's not that sneaky.
Yeah, probably the same answer that I gave you to start the last question is just win. Coach Deggs is the one you're referencing. Like, sure. It doesn't matter his schedule; he's going to try and win, right? And there's never going to be a year that we make a schedule that that I would make a schedule that I would think, okay, well, just because we scheduled this team, we could go 1-3 on the road and still be fine RPI wise. We're going in to win the game, but my philosophy is always that we want to put together opponents that, if we are successful. Obviously our intent is to win every game. If we go and take care of our business, that we do walk into the final weekend of the year with an opportunity to be an at-large team. I think that's probably, I'd say that's probably a lot of our philosophies in our conference. I think that's probably what a lot of our teams do and a lot of our coaches do. But these guys came here to play the best, and we want to put a really good schedule together. And I think the final piece of the schedule is, is just you want to be intelligent on travel. I think we forget about the first part of what these kids are sometimes as a student athlete. We want to make sure that we play a competitive schedule. We are competitive within our schedule, but we can also get them in Boone with the ability to go to class and, take care of their academics so that they can see graduation day. So that's a part of it, right? We open up our first 2 weekends in Hickory. Again, back to being very fortunate to be in the region that we're in. We don't have to travel, all over the country to find good RPI. We can play them very, very close. And so I think we're in a good position with that. But I think philosophically is we want to put together a competitive schedule that if we are successful and we have an opportunity for an at-large team, at-large bid, and we want to keep our guys somewhat close to Boone so that we can be in class and take care of our academics.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Like it or not, not all wins and losses are the same. If you lose to a low RPI team, that's going to hurt you a lot more than losing to a high RPI. If you lose to a top 40 RPI team, that doesn't hurt you nearly as much as losing to a 200 RPI team. That's a crushing blow. especially
It
late
is.
in the
It
season.
is. But you got to beat them too. You can't just schedule them and lose to all of them. Like you have
That's
you have to
true.
win those games.
That's true, but you can lose to a couple more of them than the other way.
Sure.
That's the only thing. That's the only thing. That's the thing. All right. We're talking
And
with
we don't
Kermit.
know who's going to be good and who's going to be bad.
Well, that's also true.
You don't know who's going to go. Obviously it's a pretty safe bet to schedule the College of Charleston. They're good. They're going to be really good. And again, we've got a lot of those teams in our area, but looking back on historical data, sometimes a team will just have a good year and you end up getting a couple of, really quality wins that maybe you weren't anticipating, and vice versa. You might schedule a team that traditionally is a good RPI team and they don't end up being that. So it's a crapshoot, and that's why I think just you stay as competitive as you can and give these kids a chance to go to class and win a lot of baseball games, and the rest will take care of itself.
You ever start peeking at the RPI? Not that you can change it. Like you said, you just got to win. You ever start peeking at it?
No. I drive my staff crazy. I actually don't even look at conference standings.
Goodness.
Yeah. So I'm very in the moment. I coach what I see, and I very rarely look at a stat sheet, to be honest with you. I want to know. We go to practice every day. I know what our guys are doing. I know who our better players are, and I know the guys that need to be in specific situations. And I think a lot of the other stuff can clutter it. We got a game on Friday and I want to go win it. It doesn't matter what somebody else does on that day. That's not going to affect me. What's going to affect me is how we do. But any more value that I put on a win and any harder time I put on a loss, I think really clouds some stuff. I've worked with my recruiting coordinators. We've been together 15 years. So if there's something I need to know, I'm very aware of what's going on. So it's not like I'm walking into this thing blind, but I try to stay very, very focused on people. I try to stay very focused on my team and my family and myself. And if those things are in line, then usually the rest takes care of itself.
You're like a Sunbelt tiebreaker. You're making my head hurt. You're all into these analytics, but you're not paying attention to the stats of your team. What's going on?
I'm paying attention to the things that matter.
Well, I mean, if the guy's hitting 400 with runners in scoring position, you would think that would matter.
And I probably know that.
Okay.
Because I've probably been watching. So
okay, well, that's true. But
yeah,
somewhere in there, I'm going to sneak that. Oh, by the way, we're 1.5 games up in first place coming into the
don't say that
series. I'm going to sneak that in there.
Yeah.
All right, let's wrap things up here with Kermit Smith, the head coach of the App State Mountaineers. Let's talk about 2025. One thing about college is it is always rotating, even more so with the portal. Who are the guys that you're counting on for this season?
Yeah, I mean, it's a total coach speak answer, but all of them. I think to start mentioning people, and I'm going to end up leaving somebody out there, but super excited about a few people. One guy's going to start on Friday night for us is Caleb Cross. He was out last season with injury, and just a lot of history there. His brother played for me. He was a catcher for me, all conference catcher, and 3 years ago. So what year? 23. He was an all-conference catcher for me. So kind of cool. You don't get an opportunity to coach brothers very often. So just there's some cool aspects to him working his way back from Tommy John and finding his way into the opening day starter. So just personally speaking, that's pretty cool. Another guy coming back from injuries, our shortstop Jonathan Xuereb. He had to sit out last year, and he'll be going into his redshirted sophomore year. But a guy that had some flashes as a freshman, and excited about him coming back. And I think when you have those stories of people that got hurt and went through that adversity and find their way back to the starting lineup or the weekend rotation or something to that respect, I think that those are always good guys that you kind of want to cheerlead for. So really excited about those guys. But man, I could go up and down our roster. We got a good group of boys. Last semester, 3.22 GPA, and then just the highest in school history. For a baseball program, and they work hard. We're unfortunate to have the Hurricane Helene come through up here in the fall, and when we were tasking our guys with opportunities to serve our community, it wasn't, oh man, I've got to go do this. It's like, coach, what's next? And you start blending a bunch of good dudes that work really, really hard and want to serve their community and take care of the stuff in the classroom. Again, to start mentioning people that I'm excited about everybody. I like them. They're a good group of kids. They compete. They work really, really hard. And they want to go win. So I'm excited to watch them go put it on the field on Friday night and compete.
All right, so we'll make it easier. Do you have the rest of the weekend rotation yet?
We've got some weather coming in, so we've thrown around a lot of ideas. There's a chance.
Can you play a triple header on Friday?
Yeah, and you also get into that. Do you want to play a double header weekend one? That's right. You think about the pitching on that. Sometimes it's not the pitching. Sometimes it's the position players that don't need to be on the field for 18 innings. But no, Caleb Marks, transfer from Trevecca Nazarene. He pitched for our pitching coach over there a couple of years ago, and he'll be another part of our weekend rotation. Some other guys that are competing for it. Colin Welch, who's been kind of a mainstay out of our bullpen the past few years. Max Tramontana had a great fall for us. Everett Harris has really improved from last year. He's done a good job. Jake Beatty has done a good job. Bradley Wilson's been a weekend starter for us in the past. I could see him starting a couple of games this year. So, we're really in a day by day at this moment, especially with the weather coming in this weekend. So it's not your traditional. All right, here we're going to roll it out Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Here's how because technically speaking, it could be Friday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and that would kind of blow everything up, because then we'd need to automatically start thinking about the next weekend to start getting in a schedule. So, right. Lot to unpack there. I'm not coach speaking you, but there's lot to unpack there.
Yeah, no, I'm actually a reasons guy compared to everybody else. They use, well, that's an excuse. I was like, no, that's a reason. There's a reason why this guy was playing and that guy wasn't.
That's right.
Other people say that's an excuse. I go, no, that's a reason. He is Kermit Smith. He is the head coach of the App State Mountaineers. They play in lovely Boone, North Carolina. Really appreciate your time, Coach. Hope to catch up sometime during the season. Best of luck this year. Thanks for hopping on Locked On Sunbelt. All the best.
It's a great day to be a Mountaineer. Thanks for having me, Dave, and look forward to catching up soon.